Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar. The webinar topic is development tips and tricks and best practices in D365 FNO and or DAX 2012. My name is Shankar Iyer. I have been a DAX developer administrator for IMT Corporation for past 2.5 years now. I have almost 7.5 years experience in the world of Dynamics AX, now called as D365. I have worked on almost all the versions of AX, starting from AX 3.0, 4.0, 2009, 2012, RTM, R2, R3, and even AX7 with the name change called as D365 FNO. Here are my contact information, and I have a blog also. You can also follow my blog. I'm a very active volunteer member of AXUG and D365 user group community. I have presented a lot of webinars in the past, and I have also attended the summit 2019 and looking forward to join 2020 summit too. I'm a Toronto chapter leader for the community. A little bit information about the company I work for. So we at IMT Group, we were established in 1914. We have over 100+ years of experience. We have 1.4 million square feet of manufacturing spaces. We have more than 1,000 employees. We are privately owned. We have 9 manufacturing facilities in North America and Asia, 7 distribution centers throughout North America and Asia. We have all the required certifications for running a manufacturing facilities or manufacturing plant. Our 3 divisions are IMT Precision, IMT Momentum, IMT Forge, Ingersoll Machining, IMT Defense, and HNS Heat Treating are part of IMT Precision. IMT Momentum stand-ins, we are in like Alberta and also in China. In US, we are known as Clifford Jacobs Forging, and in the Niagara region, we have PC Forge and Welland Forge. We provide a lot of services in different sectors, from transportation to aerospace to defense, mining, oil and gas, automotive, agriculture, nuclear, rail, and off-road. So the agenda for today's presentation is first we will go through the best practices, the coding best practices, and then we will cover the development tips and tricks. So, as you know, AX or Dynamics AX or D365 is both a 3-tier architecture, where the tier 1 consists of the user interface, basically client. The client interacts with the AOS, the connectivity, that is the application object server, that is the tier 2. And then all of them are connected to the database server, which is generally the SQL database servers. So that should be a clear interface between the presentation logic and the business logic. Never mix both of the logics. So always, whatever your business logic, that should be implemented on tables or classes. And you should avoid direct reference to controls on forms or report. Let's look at a general guidance. It's a developer practice for any language, but particularly for D365 FNO and Dynamic or AX 2012. For member variables, method names, and local variables, we use camel casing. For AOT elements, no matter what it is, data dictionary, classes, or table, we use the Pascal casing. Always like have parameters names with underscores. For example, you can write runnable job or my job. Um, do not use Hungarian notation like with the um, variable of its type. For example, string name or str name, int count or something like that. Avoid prefixing local variables like we mentioned, string name, int count. Use meaningful and self-documenting names. Often a developer runs into, or a development team runs into this question: where should we place the code? So I have jotted down few areas where we can work accordingly for different AOT objects. So if you are having a form and reports, never place your code that handles, complex layout or business logic. Never do not place edit and display methods on forms or reports. If code can be avoided, if code cannot be avoided in the form, place the code at the data source level, not at the control level. Call classes from buttons on forms by using menu items, for example, by not using code. Maps, use maps for limited numbers of connected fields. For example, you can use an for the address field, code should be placed on the address map. Views, views are limited select statements used on read-only tables. So do not place much codes on views unless, for example, you have a display method or on the parent table. Tables, put code strictly related to a table on the method, obviously on the table method. Create table instance method for handling one record at a time. Create table static methods when handling none, small, or all records. So I have given an example of how a view looks. So we here it's select star from bank account view, and this is a map or a view, how it looks in the AOT in the backend. Always use field groups in tables. It's always important to use field groups because field group will automatically adjust the layout of your related forms or reports. For example, here, if you see on the right hand side, we have two sections here: invoice and delivery, a section, and in there is an invoice section and a delivery section. So there are lots of fields here. There is an invoice account, invoice address, number sequence group, invoice template. Under delivery, you have delivery terms, mode of delivery, receipt calendar. Now let's look at the table or the field group for that delivery. So we have freight zone, DLV terms, that is term of delivery terms, mode of delivery, delivery reason. And for invoice, we have invoice account, invoice address. And if you see, the sequence is also matching. So once you arrange the sequence in the field group, the system or the compiler will auto adjust the groups. So the sequence in the field group can be used to determine the sequence of the fields in the form. So if you in case wants to change the sequence here for any particular reason, you can always change it here on the field group on the table, and then AX will automatically adjust on the client. Just synchronize your table or restore your table and everything should be fine. Performance optimizations. There is always question how to improve the performance. There is always this question everyone is asking: how to improve the performance of the system. AX is very slow, DAX is, the system is very slow. So sometimes there are infrastructure issues, lagging of the network issues, but sometimes there are code issues too. and how you have designed the code, how you have written the code. So I am looking at few of the methods here, or few of the concepts that can help you to improvise your code and so improvise the performance of the system. So first one is the index design. Index design is very important. Correct index definitions are very crucial for any performing application. It is useful to add or remove indexes depending on the amount of records. For example, you can use clustered index, where there are two kinds of index for any table, a primary index and a cluster index. So for example, a cust table will have a primary index of account IDX and cluster index of IDX. What are cluster index? Basically, supposingly you have a field called as name, and you want to insert a record that starts with the letter D. So if you have this clustered index, the record will be directly inserted between C and E. Clustered index do not have to be unique. Primary index needs to be unique. But whenever you have indexes on the table, when you rerun the indexes, it kind of improves the performance. Select statements. In the select statement, always use joins instead of multiple nested statements or while loops. Use select aggregate functions wherever applicable. Use delete underscore from instead of while select or delete, directly delete. Use first only always to increase the performance. You can also use update and do update depending on the situation. Consider specifying a field list in order to increase the performance. For example, if you know there are 10 rows which you are going to change, you can like write a command saying insert underscore record set or update underscore record set, and just put everything in a field list so that you don't have to write, okay, this underscore this equal to this. Transactions, makes transactions as short and small as you can to avoid deadlocks and large rollbacks. Never wait for user interaction inside a transaction. If several operations must be performed, then perform all the operation in one transaction. Use optimistic control, concurrency control, that is OCC. So let's look at an example about what's a good solution and what's a bad solution. So in this example, on the left hand side, if you can see, there is a good solution, and on the right hand side there is a bad solution. So if you see properly on the left, first let's look at the bad solution. So there is a method called as do operation XYZ. It begins, then he inserts, then he commits. So there is OCC. Then again a while loop has been opened, and then again a TTS begin and TTS commit. Again some operations are performed. So there are multiple OCC occurrences here. So basically he's using multiple transaction blocks for a single transaction. Whereas if you see on the left hand side, that is a good solution. Why? Because there is one transaction statement, like one OCC, which starts with TTS begin and TTS commit, which ends. There is all the operations performed in between those TTS begin and TTS commit. So that's a good solution. Now, obviously, now we are in the era of upgrades. Microsoft is pushing everyone to move as early as they can to D365 FNO. Similarly, for NAV, they are pushing towards Business Central, and for CRMs also. So what are the considerations and how you can do a cost efficient upgrade, because obviously upgrades are not that cheap. So what, so whenever you're looking to customize something, if it is a form, the cost is very high if any functionality is added. If functionality is changed, that is also high. For reports, if you add functionality, that is high, but if you um, um, for report template, both are low. So obviously change templates, never change like the report itself. Query, medium, both. Menu, medium. Table collection, medium. Table, very low. And if functionalities are added, then class, very low, because those are the preferred method of writing code. And I started my presentation with that only. EDTs, extended data types, medium. Base enums, medium. And menu items, medium. So modifications to a report can be done by adding a new design. In this case, the upgrade will be considered as medium. If your new functionality is added to a Microsoft Dynamics application, the cost of upgrading is likely to be much lower than if the functionality is created by modifying existing object. Code review, always good if you have a large development team. It's always better to do a code review of your code. Development is performed on proper layer. Development is performed on proper model. Version control, whether you're using any version control. Compiler warnings, all those kinds of best practices have been followed or not. Clean up your code, delete white spaces, delete unused variables, methods, and classes. No object should be left with automatically generated names. And in a general information, you can put the project name, the version name, the application build number, models, layers, developers, reviewer, review start date, and review end date. Moving on, let's look at some of the development tips and tricks for D365 FNO and DAX 2012. Parameters. So text and numeric values related to the business process should not be hard-coded. For example, let's look at a bad solution. On the top of the page, it shows a bad solution, and on the bottom of the page here, it shows a good solution. So here, we are writing a select statement. We are selecting a rec ID where location role dot name equal to invoice in quotes. Is it a good method? Is it a good way to write? No. Always call the base enum. So if you see the good solution, so here the business values are referenced by using an enum. So we are using a enum called as logistics location role type ;: invoice. So that's how for parameters you should never hard code values. Better to use base enums. Design forms so that they are not expensive to open. As I already told you in my presentation few times, that the best way to code anything is table and classes. But sometimes you have to design on forms, and some forms take a very long time to load. Why? Because there are too much code on the init method. So if you see the example which I am provided on the right hand side, in the init method we are declaring the local variables for sales table and sales total. And there is a custom table called as my custom table. There is an amount field. There is a super method. And after the super method, there is a while loop which does certain thing. So first of all, it's okay. Generally, it's a not recommended practice to write anything after super method, but if you are writing it, it's fine. It will take some time, but never have so many, huge operations like a while loop running like after the super, and that too on the init method. A form will take very long time to open. So do not include much code in the init method. In the world of dynamics, layering has been the concept which has been in existence since 2009, but it got more respect in Dynamics 2012, where we used to have a model. So what is a model? Model is basically a group of elements which has both the metadata, that is the information about the data, and the source files. That typically is basically an XPO file where it's a software solution, and it also includes a bunch of XPOs together, clubbed together. So model is a design time concept. For example, a warehouse management model or a project accounting model. But in D365, all these models belong to a package. So what is a package? Basically, you can call it as a model store. So a new name, package. Package is a deployment and compilation unit of one or more models. It includes model metadata, binaries, and other associated resources. One or more packages can be packaged into a deployable package, which you can send it to Microsoft if you are doing a production deployment, or you can move those packages between your dev environments on your own. You can customize source code and metadata that are shipped by Microsoft, obviously. General recommendation is doing development in only one layer. Most common layers are CUS and Word, where CUS is belonging to a customer. If you are a Microsoft customer, Word is a value added reseller. Obviously, it belongs to a partner. There are some ISV layers also, where if you use any ISVs in your customization or in your models or in your project. So ISV is for independent software vendors who are giving a software, third-party software, basically that you will use in your project. So we don't recommend doing development on the user layer. In order to customize metadata, the developer must create a new model. And please, it's better to keep all your modifications in one model rather than making different sets of models. Because if it's a one model, your upgrade would be smooth, efficient, seamless. But if there are several models, then it will take some time. Overlaying is a very powerful tool to perform advanced customizations of metadata and source code, but it will increase the cost of upgrading a solution to a new version. Then in D365 FNO, we got a new concept of extensions. So what are extensions? Extensions enables you to add the functionality to existing model elements and source code. So extensions can be done for existing model elements, source code using class extensions, customizing business logic. How can you customize the business logic? You can create event handlers to respond to framework events such as data events. You can also respond to event delegates that are defined by the application. You can create new plugins. What are the benefits or what are the advantages of using extension models? So application lifecycle management, extension models simplify and improve the performance. Design time performance, building your model or project doesn't require you to recompile the entire application. Servicing in the cloud, Microsoft can install, patch, upgrade, and change the internal API without affecting your customizations. Upgrades, very easy. The cost of upgrade is very flexible also and very easy also if you are using extension. Let's take a look at this diagram. So here there is a overlaying model. This is a MS application suite model, and here the same using extension. So we have extension here. We have extension for the ISV1. We have extension for the ISV2. But on the overlayering, we just have the overlayering. So as I have explained you both extensions and overlaying, a very high debate is always there whether to use extensions or overlaying. Until 2012, we were using overlaying. So overlaying code is now an outdated technology because it involved customizing within the Microsoft code and recompiling the code. So any customization, for example, you wouldn't have seen because, for example, you have developed your code on the var layer or the cus layer, and then Microsoft comes up with a cumulative update. For example, if you are on R2 or R3, CU9 or CU8 or CU6, and now you want to move to D365 FNO, so obviously you have to go to CU13 or latest kernel build on both R2 or R3. Then again, what you will do is basically you will install that KB of the latest and the greatest, and then for your customizations you have to do a code merge, which is very strenuous process. And if you have several ISVs also linked to your project, then you have to do the code merge between that also. So very challenging to perform this upgrade. You have to install the hotfix, you have to maintain the code. The complexity increases every time you add something new or you do any revisions to your customizations. So to eliminate the cost and the risk associated with overlaying, Microsoft has sealed its code base. Now you cannot customize Microsoft code. So beginning with Spring 2018 D365 release. So the only option left for you is nothing but extensions. So in contrast to overlaying, extensions allows developer to work with the code in a separate file. This approach is very flexible because companies and their software partners are now able to write code that sits along with D365 code. Obviously, extensions still depend on Microsoft code, but are not inherently blended with it. For instance, let me explain you. Microsoft issues a hotfix or update to D365. Extension codes can be applied to the newer version without extensive maintenance work. No need of merging, code merge, because all your extensions will be in a model which is separate to the Microsoft update. So for example, you find all your related code for the table. Suppose you're manipulating a table, you create a table extension and you have your own model. You pass on that a table extension to that model. So your table extension is part of that model, and Microsoft came up with a new version or a new cumulative update. So you just have to take care of your model. You just have to pass on that. Other than that, you're not touching anything of the Microsoft base code. You can still use, if you want to customize the sales table, yes, you can. You create an extension of the sales table and use it. So that's a very good concept. So always prefer extensions and avoid overlaying. Labels. Labels are a way to do string replacement in Dynamics AX. They are very helpful if your company is multilingual. In general, if a label exists in the sys layer, it is safe and recommended to use. Avoid using labels from ISV as they are a bit unstable, and then you have to take care of your merging. If unsure, it is always safer to create your own label in your own label. Thank you for attending this webinar. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you want to personally send me an email, you can always send to email at sier@amtcorporation.com and Shankarayer email at gmail.com. And any questions, you can feel free to ask now.
Thanks, Shankar. And yes, we do have a question. Is development in AX2012 versus D365 completely different?
Some of the things are different. Obviously, here we do everything in VSTS. The Team Foundation server has changed. The TFS has changed. And a lot of other intricacies, like I said, about extensions, model management, those have changed. But the base X++ concepts still exist. The OOPS concepts still exist. Everything, whatever you have, it would be a little bit of new learning about handling the event handlers and stuffs like that, the chain of commands. But overall, the base concepts are still the same.
Okay. And then is development in D365 in the AOT?
Yeah, AOT still exists. AOT still exists. That's the base application object tree. There is a two different views in D365. You have a model view and an application view. So, but obviously, once you get familiar with the environment and stuff, it should be same.
Okay. And then just one more question that I'm seeing. Do you recommend any websites or material to understand D365 development and the back end?
Absolutely, like Microsoft Docs, docs.microsoft.com. They have tons of resources which you can use. And obviously, if you run into any questions or stuff, you can obviously reply to those links. And you can also use some user forums like AXUG, D365UG, or you can use Dynamics user group. Like there are lots of, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the forums. People are very helpful.
Okay. And then another question. How much SSRS involvement is there in D365 development?
It's still the same. It's pretty much the same as we had in AX2012.
Okay. That was the end of the questions. Yep. And the questioner said thanks and have a nice weekend. So I will say that thanks very much, Shankar, for presenting. Thanks everyone for attending and have a great weekend.